All right. Y'all ready to give just a little? Oh, let's get you away from that overpass. All right. Y'all ready to give a little smile? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Very nice. Okay. Now we'll start officially. Eden with Spiritual Boom, Just Be Spiritual Boom, coming at you on audio and video. I'm still getting used to the video part of it today. So it used to be gently moving you into the Great Awakening. Now it's like tumbling you in to the Great Awakening. And I want to welcome my guests right now, and they know that I'm going to give them a quick intro and then talk a little bit about what's been going on with me, and then we'll proceed. Okay, so out of Boca Raton, Florida, welcome, hello, close friends, Lynn, Everard. Did I say that correctly? Yay! Yes. And Louise Gomez. They host a podcast together. Awesome. They host a podcast together called The Editor's Desk and have authored their own book in discovering that they had a past life together. Okay. And already discussed this with Lynn that I work on calling them parallel lives because we are moving into the quantum, moving away from old time paradigms. So they had a parallel life together. The book that they wrote about it is called The Reuniting of Two Past Lives and the Unveiling of 12 Sacred Lessons, which maybe they'll share one of those with us today. They discuss the ups and downs of their life together, which was romantic in Aztec, Mexico 500 years ago. Louise has spent several years, I love this, with meaty time put into self-realization, self-empowerment, and personal transformation, which I will give a thumbs up on that. Lynn is a life guide, author, coach, and author of the book, How Speaking Your Truth Could Save Your Life and How It Saved Mine. And they got kids and all of that. So welcome, you all. Yay!
Thank you.
All right, so let me give a quick little blurb about what's been going on in my life and how this will tie all of us in together. So I literally just got back this morning from visiting Sedona, Arizona, which y'all know I'm in Ohio. And my point in that was to really up my vibration. So I'm going to put this out there starting tomorrow. No caffeine, no sugar, no alcohol. And I'm not big on alcohol, and I really gotten sugar dwindled down. But a couple podcasts ago when Pia and Cullen were on, they're like, any sugar amount puts holes in your energy and your field. So I'm going to let go of all of those things. So wish me luck on those. And I'm saying this to also encourage you to do that as well. Okay. So it was beautiful being in Arizona, knowing there is a lot of fraudulent voting stuff happening there right now. And they were having marches on Friday and Saturday. And I tried to be part of one on Saturday, but was a little too late because that was so interesting to be there during all of this. So if you're not familiar with any of that, look it up because it applies to all of us. Then this is my last thing. When I was away, I also watched Stu Peters' documentary, Died Suddenly. And I'll put that link on here. Apparently it has gone viral on Twitter, which is a huge deal because if people, it's really, it could be really good in awakening eyes. So basically it talks about, basically people that have died. So death is speaking. So embalmers start the beginning of the documentary talking about the crazy clots they are finding and people that have died with them, and they're starting to talk about it collectively. Then there were nurses and doctors who are talking about the unprecedented rise in stillbirths. Okay, I don't know about you guys, we're going to talk about this in just a second. I knew there was going to be a lot of death, yet when you're confronted with it, and they showed pictures of people dying, I mean, I started crying and my heart and empathy went out. I have 3 people that are not close to me, but friends of friends that have just died suddenly, that were in a degree all starting to have some sort of impact with this. Can y'all speak to that at all? Or what would you say? What are your thoughts? Have y'all seen the documentary yet?
No, I have not seen it yet, but now I'm very intrigued to see it.
Yeah,
I saw it a few days ago.
Okay, what'd you think?
Very compelling.
Yes.
We did they say that pictures don't lie. And when you see this, and then you hear the embalmers talking about the struggles they had that they've never had before, you have to take notice.
Very good point. And when they pull out the clots, and there's one that they pull out from a beating heart, a living heart, and then the clots that they have pulled out of bodies, it's just it's astounding. And the fact that they've never seen clots like this before collectively, you're right, Lynn. You cannot ignore it. Oh, so let me lead right into that, because so much of this is about the Great Awakening and how to be prepared for that. How did each of you individually start noticing things, or how did you awaken to all that's going on? Louise, do you want to start first? And you're coming home, you're in traffic right now because of the Thanksgiving holidays.
No, I've never seen traffic. I haven't been in traffic like this for years. I think it's because it's the first time in a couple of years, I guess, that there's been no quote unquote restrictions. So it's been wild. I should have been home hours ago. It's just been, I guess everybody decided to come out this year. But getting back to your question, so for me, I guess it would be my own awakening that started to take place several years ago when I started to realize that my life, I kept hitting roadblocks and stumbling blocks, and I kept realizing, okay, well, who's the common denominator here? It must be me. So it was a hard pill to swallow, but I had to start realizing how I played a part in some of the, dysfunction or things that were happening in my life that I was not happy about. So I started on my personal journey of self-realization, and I took a transformational course that was very intense. That's how Lynn and I actually met in that class. But I guess part of my awakening was my own journey of self-love. And then through that process, our vibration raises, right? And as our vibration raises, then all of a sudden we start to become much more aware of really what's happening, at least in my experience. That's how it kind of came about, was that as I raised my vibration, this level of awareness and of what was going on, and being receptive and seeing things and hearing things in such a different way, that maybe if my frequency or vibration was lower, I might not have been able to even see it, hear it, or understand it. And then what happened was, through the process of writing our book, I really started to have more and more intuitive hits, more and more downloads, and things started happening to me. I can also attribute that, now that I'm thinking about it, I can also attribute it to I've been doing meditation for several years now, and I feel like transcendental meditation has helped me with raising my vibration.
Oops, I think there's a little cutoff. Yeah, so because of a bit of technical difficulties, we're going to go right to Lynn. So Lynn, can you tell me about your awakening process, and tell me more about you and Louise meeting in that class? Like, y'all didn't know each other until then.
Right.
Okay.
Right. We, so my awakening journey began in roughly 2013, which was the year I got divorced.
Okay.
And I, like many people, get to a point in your life and you say, well, there must be more to life than this. And then I happened to meet a number of people at a job I was working at, and people kept recommending books to me. And as they recommended a book, I would read it. And then I got to the point where I met more people, and then I finally decided to sign up for this leadership training program, where Louise and I actually ended up meeting. Now we met there initially, but we didn't really know each other, right? That came several years later.
Oh gosh. Okay.
But we knew of each other. And so that took us into I would say roughly 2000. So in 2018, we were part of an intention group. It was held at Louise's clubhouse where she lives, and I had been a member of an intention group before, so I participated. And there was a third person who started it, but she was in a serious car accident and had to drop out. So in December of 2019, we were Louise and I were on the phone contemplating what we were going to do about the intention group. And I'm gonna leave you hanging there for just a moment,
Okay.
because prior around that time, my first book was coming out, and
The one that I referenced?
Yes,
Okay.
How Speaking Your Truth Could Save Your Life and How It Saved Mine, because I grew up and spent most of my life not knowing who I was, like literally, who my family was, who my father was, who my mother was. I grew up in a family, but I later learned that I was a product of incest, and then also later learned that I was a survivor of abuse. And so I didn't know about the survivor of abuse part when I wrote the book, but my whole family, it seems, were so afraid of my father, who had been dead for 40 years at that point in time, that nobody would tell me who I was or where I came from or who my real mother and father were. And I have slowly had to figure it out over the next several decades. And so truth became really, really important to me. Matter of fact, if you ask me what was most important to me in life, I would probably tell you truth.
Okay.
And so I would tell, typically, in dealing with me, I would tell someone, I would rather hear your worst truth than your best lie. I can handle if it's true. I can't handle it if it's a lie. Anyway, so back to our story.
Can I ask you some questions about that?
Oh, sure.
So neither one of your parents were biological parents.
My father turned out to be my father.
Okay.
My grandmother, who raised me as her son, turned out to be my grandmother, and one of my sisters turned out to be my actual mother. In the entire time of my life, I had exactly 1 3-minute phone conversation with her as son to mother, and that was it. And I told her two things in the conversation was, one, I love you, and number two, thank you so much for everything you went through to bring me into this world.
What a story. Can we just pause on that for a moment? Yeah. Okay. And knowing, I'll say I have a lot of people that come into do my work who have tremendous stories. So I appreciate you sharing your truth and knowing that I might ask even something bigger, but it sounds like you're pretty willing to disclose as much as is asked. Is that true?
Yes. And that's why the work that I do with people,
Yes.
I now call myself the coach who helps people get in sync with their truth. I don't tell people what their truth is. I help them discover it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. I'm going to take just a pause for a second. Do you think I need to see if Louise can get back on with us?
I think she's on, I think. Louise, are you there?
I am.
Oh, you are there. Oh gosh, you're very dark. Oh.
I'm still here.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm
Okay.
still here.
Still here. Wonderful. All right. So if you can go into how y'all met.
Yeah. Louise, do you want to pick up on that, or do you want me to?
Again?
Okay. So
Lynn, you're probably gonna have to do most of the talking because it's cutting in and out for me.
okay. Okay. So we really started spending time together as a part of this intention group, but then I was involved in other things. And so I was involved in a Course in Miracles, and Louise decided, oh, I'm going to go to Course in Miracles, and then there were other things. There was a Think and Grow Rich program, and then she got involved in that. And the funny thing is that I had actually I'd started telling my past life story as a part of this intention group, because it's amazing enough to have met one person from that past life, but I met two. And the first person I met so I was a king, and the first person I met was the lady who was the queen. And I thought we were going, I mean, I literally walked up to her after a class one night and said, you and I were king and queen in Mexico 500 years ago. And she said, yes, we were. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. We're going to write a book together. So we set up a time to meet and write the book. She never showed. Not only that, she disappeared. She ghosted me completely. And I said, I don't understand what's happening here, but I let go of it. And then I did not realize that Louise, in the beginning of 2019, had done a past life regression with a woman out of New York named Janet Namaste. Janet told her about this past life that she and I shared, but she didn't know it was me. And so then I started sharing a little bit more in our intention group, but I never thought it was Louise either. I mean, but all I knew was that I had found my queen and she didn't want to write a love story. And because I assumed that was where the love was the queen. Now, in our book, we actually tell why that's not true, but I let go of the idea completely. I said, okay, I guess this isn't going to happen. And then on December 16th, 2019, Louise and I were having a conversation on the phone. What are we going to do with the intention group? It seems like we're losing people. We're coming into the holidays. What do you want to do with it? But the start of the conversation was I had been sick the week before, and I had missed the intention group. So Louise asked me, well, how are you feeling? And I said, well, I'm okay. But then she heard something else. She heard, except that I spent the weekend in jail in Mexico.
Oh my gosh.
I never said that.
Right.
But she heard it. And then she had this decision she had to make. Would she tell me what she heard? And she decided to tell me.
Because you only want the truth, right, Lynn?
Absolutely.
Yes, come on.
and she told me, and we were on the phone for another hour and a half, because in that moment, she understood that I was the person from that past life that she was told about in her past life regression. And I just realized I couldn't write a love story with the queen I wasn't in love with. I had to write a love story with the woman I was in love with in that lifetime.
Wow. All right. Let me pause here for a moment. So obviously y'all were supposed to meet. She was supposed to hear what you weren't saying. Can y'all tell our watchers and our listeners more about discovering your past lives, your parallel lives? What does that mean, and why was it important to you guys? Because I've known a lot of mine, and they were very great. And a lot of them for me too. I was horrible. I mean, at one point I was a leader of like a continent, and I killed people, I was a male, took babies from their homes, killed people. I mean, I decimated so many lives. And there was one that I was a serial killer. So how it helped me so much right now is going through this great awakening and seeing all the horrible things that are happening in our world, and knowing that I contributed to all of this at some point as well. So it's not, oh, you're going to, discover your parallel lives and you're going to be great and everything's going to be wonderful. No, there's a lot to it. All right. What would y'all say to that?
I agree.
So, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Go ahead, Lou.
So I agree. We discover our past, our parallel lives, and maybe like in your case, you know, it was less than desirable. But the beauty is that once you're aware of it, and in where we are right here, right now, we get to use those lessons and say, okay, how do I want to show up? That's who I was then. And maybe you needed that contrast of being who you were for you to be on the path and the journey of you are now. Because you know you don't want to like you were in the past, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So sometimes sometimes having that contrast is powerful, right? We don't have light unless we go through the darkness. It's all about, black and white, the up, the down. It's all about, the contrast. So it definitely, I believe, having these lives, we learn something about ourselves. And when Lynn and I discovered, as he told you, we discovered independently of each other, we had this past life. And I mean, I knew when I was 18, 19, I went to Mexico, and when I went there at the time, I knew I had a past life in Mexico. And so, years and years later in 2019, when this lady told me about my past life, it made sense to me, because I said, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember going to Mexico and completely feeling like I had been there before. And so it was a beautiful journey of all the memories started to flood in. Once I realized, oh my God, Lynn, you were the one I had a past life with. All the memories started to come in, and I just had to start writing. And that was like right before the pandemic. I think we decided during the pandemic, well, this is what we'll do. We'll just start writing, this will be our pandemic story, right? So that's really what happened.
That's it. Lynn, can I ask you again, in terms of your divorce, you were the one that proposed it?
Yes.
Can you tell me just a little bit about that? Because I've talked about in past episodes how now is the point of time, even though this happened to you a while back, of clearing out relationships that don't serve you and that don't speak your truth. Can you tell me just a second about that?
Yeah, well, again, it was probably what one would consider a karmic relationship. When I look back on it now, the biggest thing I realized was that I didn't love myself. Matter of fact, I was still carrying the belief that I was unlovable, that I was unwanted, because I knew on some level that I wasn't planned to be. My parents didn't plan on me being here.
Right.
That I was actually the result. I was an outcome of a violent sexual act perpetrated on a woman. And somehow I knew that. And so it just, none of it felt right to me, because I literally needed to get clear in myself. And we had drifted apart. We had 2 kids, 2 teenagers at the time. And I told her, I said, we don't make enough money to run 2 full households. And, one of us is going to need to leave. So there was actually a job possibility in California that I was considering. And then we decided that she would leave, because I literally told her to go find someone, because that's where I was at the time. And, it's, I'm a Pisces, so we're very intuitive, but we also, and we're mutable. We put up with a lot, but when we've reached our limit, then it all comes out.
So was she surprised initially, or just an agreement?
She really wasn't. She knew it wasn't working. We both knew that. And so it was just important to end that. I didn't know all the work that lie ahead of me.
Yeah.
Because I had to get in touch with my truth. And in the process of doing that, then I developed some tools to help other people get in touch with their truth.
So how have you learn to love yourself?
There's oftentimes you'll hear someone say that so-and-so doesn't love themselves. And I cringe every time I hear that.
Mm-hmm.
We all love ourselves to some extent. If we didn't love ourselves, it wouldn't be possible for anyone to love us. We all have people who love us, but we have parts of ourselves that we don't love yet. And we tend to put all the focus on those parts. And because those parts are unlovable in our eyes, we assume that all of us must be unlovable. And that's actually a fallacy. It is not that we're unlovable as a whole, it's that we each have pieces that we have not accepted, pieces of ourselves that we have not accepted for what they are. And when we offer those pieces acceptance, that's when we can actually start talking about loving ourselves. Because it's easy to love the easy parts, right?
Right.
It's damn difficult to love the parts that we look at in ourselves and we say, nobody would love that about me, right? But it all starts with us. And if you look at yourself as having a weakness, then energetically, you're telling everybody around you that that's what's wrong with you. And if they treat you as though that's what's wrong with you, don't blame them. You program that into them energetically. So loving ourselves is really about accepting what we think are the worst parts of ourselves, which for some of us is our shadow.
All right. So how did you personally, knowing that you were conceived into this world, not on purpose and through violence per se, how did you work on that?
It took a long time. Now I spent and you'll see this in my first book. I spent a lot of time trying to save the world from my father, who I thought I would become. I was really what I did was I was dimming the light of my masculinity I thought in order to protect women from my father, who could show up in me as the person that he was.
Very interesting.
And I had to start letting go of that in order to really show up in the world the way that I want to.
Okay, so how did you start letting go of it?
It's been a long process. There's still pieces that I'm letting go of. I mean, this is not like going through a car wash and all the dirt's gone, right? This healing, we heal in an instant. We integrate in a lifetime. So
did you come up with that yourself? That's lovely.
Yes, just now.
Say it again, please. Can you say it again?
We heal in an instant.
Yes.
We integrate in a lifetime.
Ooh, I like that.
So, and what that means is that, yes, we can reach a place of healing and say, yes, I am healed. But now where the work begins is that I have to apply that healing at every situation, every moment where I want to go back to my old way of looking and perceiving myself and the things around me and the old way that I did it. And I can choose in every moment whether I will apply it or not. But ultimately, I'm the one that has to make that choice. I'm the only one that can make the choice. And the more I make that choice, the more integrated I become.
And I would add to that, the more mindful or conscious you become of that choice, when periods of time come up for you to make that choice, you are clear. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're more clear to make that choice than just to go, just to be in a daze and go through it. All right. So in terms of, and Louise, tell me, I'm talking more to Lynn right now just because of the car, but at any time, if you want to interject, Lynn, in terms of letting that go, I'm going to go back to this again for a second. how, because I feel this is really important to our listeners and to our viewers. How are you doing that specifically? Again, knowing it's always a choice. When you're confronted with it, do you take a breath? Do you realize it? Do you switch things up in your head and your heart? Yeah, if you can get really specific on that one, I'd appreciate it.
So here's where the beauty of past lives comes in.
Yes.
Louise and I believe that exploring our past lives offers two really powerful benefits. The first one is that we live in a world right now where almost everything is based upon a fear of death. But when you understand that if you've had past lives or parallel lives or whatever we want to call them, you're probably going to have more. And if you know you're going to have more, death is no longer something to fear. And we can move beyond that now, because it's just a change in consciousness, if you will.
Exactly.
The
So
second,
it's not real.
right?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second piece that's really important is that each of us has way more gifts, talents, and abilities than we will ever discover in a lifetime. But when you discover a parallel life or a past life, and you know who you were in that life, you now have access to all of those gifts, all of those abilities and talents, simply through awareness of their very existence within you. So what helps me is that in the past life that Louise and I shared, the parallel life that Louise and I shared, and still share, and if all time is now, then we're still sharing that life. And because I was a king in that life, I have begun to see myself as a king in this life, and to start to take on the aspects of a king. And the truth is that it wasn't that those things weren't there before, it was that they were lying dormant, waiting to be discovered. And I'm not in an unusual situation. We all have this ability. We all have all these beautiful gifts, talents, and abilities waiting for us if we're willing to become aware of them. And those gifts, talents, and abilities are what we have been gifted by Spirit to support us in doing the work we came here to do in this current lifetime.
Let me add this. I just had a gentleman on last week who is not charging for his gifts right now because he's concerned that if he charges for them, they're going to go away. What would you say to that?
I would say that he's missing a big piece of the puzzle, because if we are here doing the work of Spirit, which is all of us, then we get to have our needs met. And since everything is energy, we need to create energetic exchanges with people. And if we're giving them our energy, then they need to give us energy. One of my mentors in business is a guy named James Wedmore. And one of the things he says is that if people don't pay, they don't pay attention.
I love that too.
If you look at people, take a look at how many people you've done something for free for, and see how much of themselves they've really committed to putting into it.
Yeah,
and they've actually stepped up.
They don't have any skin in the game. If they don't,
Right.
if they don't pay, they don't have any skin in the game. And if he's not charging, he's not honoring his gift, I believe.
Yeah. And I look at it this way. People aren't paying me. What they're doing is they're making a commitment to themselves. But there has to be somebody outside of them that represents that physical commitment, the physical nature of the commitment that they're making. And that's what the energy exchange is. That's why we trade money for people who can help us.
Nice. All right. Let me ask you this as you're talking about owning that king that is inside you. Obviously, there was this feminine aspect as well. And knowing that right now, you as a white male are, really seen as not so good. And there's so much harshness around that. How do you intertwine all of this together?
It's all a story. It's all an illusion. I was watching a debate, or I saw some people debating upon whether the earth was round or flat.
Yes.
Okay. If it's all an illusion, does it even matter?
Good point.
So I look at all of this other stuff is that people are going to project out what they cannot integrate within. And so when people accuse people of things, I have an understanding that there's something that they're deeply struggling with, but they can't say anything about it for whatever reason. Yeah.
Awesome. Louise, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I totally agree. It's unprocessed emotions or things when people project out whatever it is that is going on. There's nothing really happening outside of us. Everything is really happening within ourselves. And one of the chapters in our book is called "Triggers Are a Gift," and that is one of the sacred lessons. So when something triggers us, our obligation to our highest self to evolve into the best version that we can become is to sit with it and say, why am I being triggered? What's here? What is this trying to show me? What is this trying to teach me? And so that really is a blessing when we can sit with our triggers, because it's unresolved trauma or something within us that we get to heal. It's never the other person, it's always something within us that, they didn't do anything wrong. They're just being who they are, right?
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
In terms of, because I work in this as well, when something triggers you and it puts you into pain and it puts you into retreat, how would you recommend stick with it? How would you encourage someone? Same thing. Triggers are good for you. Sit with it, yep. Be with it. Yet, how would you recommend sitting and being with it?
Well, Lynn, if you have our book there, you can read the intention. Ooh. We created an intention for every chapter. I don't know if you happen to have the book there, but and when we created that, triggers are a gift, we created an intention for that, because the trigger is something for us to sit with, to look at, and to work on that within ourselves. And so it sometimes can be a daunting task to think, wow, it's something within me, but they're the one doing it. Look at them. They're doing this. They're doing that, right?
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. But so, Lynn, if you found the intention, maybe you can read that.
Yeah. So to take those fingers and point them directly at you. Go ahead, Lynn. I'm pointing at you.
The intention for the 10th lesson is, when I see triggers as a gift, I am free to move beyond that which triggered me.
So it's a journey, right? Yeah. So what we get to do is sit with it and ask ourselves, and you know what? It may not be resolved in that setting. It could take weeks, months, years. Right. It's all a process of peeling the layers of the onion and how we can figure out, how we can evolve into a higher level of consciousness. And that is one of the ways is really sitting with those triggers and questioning ourselves, for us to be in the question of it. And that's imperative part of the self-growth, self-love, self-realization process, right? Is to take ownership of it and not to be a victim to the story. not to be a victim to that story anymore.
Mhm.
And
And I'm
once we
telling
take ownership of it, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say too, I've been telling my clients too, like the energy and the vibration is very supportive of you right now. So if you are choosing to start to feel your truth and understand that things are ramping up right now. So if you can do it now, oh my goodness, what for some folks could take a year can take like a week. Again, there's no, it might take you a while for this one, but this could come really quickly. I've seen
Right.
some things lately that I'm just blown away with. So please, all of y'all, do it. Do the work. Okay, go ahead, Louise. Getting
No,
sassy for a
I
second.
love it. No, that's okay. I love it. I love how you're, really encouraging your people to do the work. And, it's not an easy journey, but it's definitely worthwhile, of being introspective and taking ownership. Um, Part of our 12 sacred lessons that we brought back from that parallel life into this life, part of it was also for our journey, for us to be reminded
Sure.
of things that we get to remember, because sometimes it's not just one and done. It's a process, it's a journey. So we have other sacred lessons for us to remind ourselves of really how to live a fully expressed life. We have other lessons. One of them is, the power of forgiveness. The main foundation of the book, the main lesson really is love is eternal. And what we talk about and what we speak into is that, energy can't be created or destroyed. It will be transmuted. And so love is eternal means that we, just like water, right? Water can be vapor, it can be ice, it could be snow, it could be hail, it could be all these different things, but it always transmutes. It's always H2O. And that's the same as love. Love is eternal. And so, when people pass on, that love will live on forever. And I firmly believe that with all my heart, because till this day, I've lost my parents, my grandparents, and I feel them all the time. And that's really the foundational lesson that we want to teach in this book, is that love is eternal. And Lynn and I, in that lifetime, we, I was the lover to the king, and that's what it looked like. But because love is eternal in this lifetime,
Right.
we may not be lovers, we're great friends, but it doesn't matter. We love each other in such a way that we were able to create this book, right? If that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, it
Love
sure does.
love can look in different ways. It doesn't always have to look what one thinks it has
Right.
to look like. So
What we
that's what,
expect.
yes, what we expect, exactly. And so, we really have some beautiful lessons. Maybe you want to tell her a few more, Lynn, or you can speak into that if you'd like as well.
Oh, please. And let me ask a question, Lynn, knowing that you're in that past life, you were married to the queen, yet you and Louise had a relationship. What does that mean exactly?
What was the relationship, do you mean?
Yes.
So in the book, in the parallel life, the queen that I was married to as king, it was kind of like a forced wedding to unite two tribes, so that the quest for continued existence could be resolved on some level. The problem is that as a king, I was all about the power of influence and being able to work closely with people. And the queen was all about conquest, because she was still trying to earn the love of her father. So she thought if she did manly things, that she could win the love of her father. But so what love really ended up, or what happened is that the queen tried to distract me from keeping tabs on what she was up to. and she decided that it would be, that my clothes weren't very good and I needed a new wardrobe. And
Okay.
so I needed to find a seamstress who could create a new wardrobe for me.
Oh,
And Louise happened to be a seamstress, and she created a new wardrobe for me. And of course, in order to try things on and make sure that they fit, back then, you'd have to remove like pretty much all your clothing, and that created opportunities for for the sex to happen.
okay. So
But
wardrobe and two different kinds of new wardrobes. Now, a new love wardrobe and a physical clothing wardrobe. Okay, got it.
yeah. So, but
Yeah.
the other thing that happened, the other part of it that was really, really important is that
Yeah.
because of the way that Louise grew up in that lifetime,
Okay.
she learned some incredibly valuable lessons in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever she would present the king with a new garment, she would present it with a lesson. And they discussed the lesson together.
Oh my gosh, how deep.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
deep.
And then, because they were living the lessons together. And it wasn't so
Yes.
much that she was teaching the king as that she was awakening his memory
Opening up. Right.
of the lessons within him. So if you can imagine that, what that created between the two of them, and it was deep, as you said. So it was, much of this was happening at a soul level.
Mm-hmm.
And so these were souls that were probably connected through time, and our souls continue to be connected through time. And so we talked about love is eternal.
Mm-hmm.
Love is eternal at the level of the soul. So our connection, our relationship back then created such a depth of soul love that it made it possible for us to find each other again in this other parallel life, this current life that we're aware of now.
Mm-hmm. So, Louise, are you currently married?
I am not. I'm single. I'm divorced. I've been divorced now for 12 years. But I am single.
Okay, but it's also so neat that y'all aren't in a romantic relationship right now, that it's like, there's so many people that, oh, we had this past, they're married and we had these past lives together and we've been entrenched and through
Right.
everything, yet y'all had that and have this bond, yet it doesn't mean now you have to have a romantic relationship. Okay, did I word that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're just it's a great friendship. It's
I'm
a
assuming yes.
yeah,
I'm assuming like a
really,
really deep trust. I mean, the trust that you guys must have with each other,
yes.
especially given the king and the seamstress relationship. Like, I'm assuming if anything had been visualized or people had known, she would have been killed. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
do you think that would be true?
Yes,
absolutely.
with certain people, yes.
Okay. And how long did you have this relationship through both of your lives at that point, or did it dissolve, or what? How did it finish?
Well, that people are gonna
Ah,
how it ended in the book. Oh,
Yes.
see, they'll have to read the book to find
Oh,
out.
yes.
love that.
Can't give that away because
Good.
that's a real yeah,
Yes, but
poignant moment of the book.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Fun to talk about. Yeah. Can y'all give us one more lesson?
sure.
Sure.
Another little tidbit. Thank y'all so much.
Well, one of the lessons that we find these two lessons to travel together. We've already talked about triggers are our gifts.
Mhm.
And the other one is called the willingness to be open. And
Yes.
we really have found that when people are willing to be open, then great things can come from that.
Yes.
That it's fascinating because you can have everything that you desire within yourself. And part of the challenge we have as humans is that if we go into something believing that we need another person to complete us, I know it was
Exactly.
a great movie, okay?
Yeah,
But
I
the only
gotcha.
person who can complete you is you.
Right.
But if people, I mean, I still see people go into relationships because they're looking for someone to complete them.
Yep.
That is a fool's errand if ever there was one,
Mhm.
and it is guaranteed to end in disaster.
Mhm.
And it's so much better, the idea that if you can have everything you need within yourself,
Right.
you don't actually need to outsource that responsibility to someone else.
I love the word outsource. Yes.
Right. And so once you have that, you don't have this desperate longing for something, because where all of these lessons come in and where all the karma comes in is when you think you have to make that other person exactly like the teddy bear you had when you were a kid. Okay. And if they
I
don't,
love that one.
if they don't fulfill that in you, then you're going to toss them aside and go looking for someone who might be able to do a better job.
Oh,
And so once if you don't need it, if you don't have that desire that person is like oxygen to you,
mhm.
you're not going to have the expectations of them. You're not going to put them on a pedestal and say, okay, I'm going to worship you, but you damn well better give me everything I want. Because otherwise I'm gonna knock you off the pedestal and put somebody else up there.
Right. Again, it's taking that pointing finger and pointing it back towards yourself with every aspect,
Yes.
romantically, loving,
Right.
loving. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, please.
So when you realize you don't actually need that person like oxygen,
Mhm.
it changes everything. Then that is what really takes us into unconditional love and back into soul love. And if we have that soul love and we have some level of understanding of unconditional love, that's actually a person you could create something with now.
Yes.
Because you've worked through the idea that they're going to save you, right? Because nobody's
Yes.
going to save you. And even with everything happening in our world right now, okay,
Mhm.
much of what's happening, much of the decisions people make is because they still believe that there's something outside of them that can
Mhm.
save them.
Including the government, including vaccinations.
Yes,
Yes. All.
all of it.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Mm. Yep.
Awesome. And I'll throw this out there. My mentor right now, my big thing is to move out of my own way. So again, I've been doing this work for over 20 years. So again, you're never done, which is beautiful, because if you were done, there would be nothing else to do. And multiple layers and all of that. And I really enjoy what y'all are talking about specifically, because I've been divorced now 2 years, working with a lot of women right now who are also divorced. And again, getting back to this thing, like for me, I still feel I need, not need, I want to wait a little bit, because I haven't, like I've gotten much more love within myself, yet there's still a couple of uh, pivotal challenges that I feel, if I haven't worked through them myself, that if I garner a relationship, that will come back to me. So I'd rather just do it by myself first. And,
Right.
it's when I'm damn well and ready. And again, some people ask me, Eden, are you dating anybody right now? I'm like, no, I'm not ready for that yet. And why does that even really matter? I don't need anyone to fulfill me. I fulfill myself. And
Yep.
once I've completed that, however that looks, or it's never completed, but once I feel really good about that, maybe I'll go and look for someone, and maybe I won't. Or maybe someone will just show up. It doesn't
Someone
matter.
will just show up. The right one will just show up in your space. You won't.
Exactly.
You'll call it forth, and you'll just meet the right one. And that's just how I believe it will happen.
Yes. And this whole thing too about family and that, we're supposed to, our mother and father and, our siblings, were just supposed to be tight knit and love each other. I'll use a word. That's a bunch of bullshit as well. So Lynn,
Yeah.
you experienced a lot of that too. Your family is who you create energetically. It doesn't have to be your blood family as well. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So is there anything else from your book? Because I want to ask anything else from your book. And then I also want to maybe conclude with, I always ask everybody on here what as we're going through this great awakening, and there's a lot of turmoil right now, how you would recommend best grounding yourself. So let's start with the book first. Is there anything else y'all want to highlight with that?
I think what I would like to highlight is the number of synchronicities that Louise and I experienced during the course of the writing of the book, which took about 2.5 years.
Wow. Okay.
And, they were probably well over 100. We talk about a handful of them in the beginning of the book, but we kept receiving that guidance that you're on the right track, you're on the right track, you're on the right track.
Okay. Can you give me an example of one or two?
So this is what I consider to be the big one. Louise knows what I'm going to say.
Okay.
In a Sunday afternoon in April of 2020, Louise and I were talking on the phone. She was sitting out back on her patio looking up at the sky. And she noticed that there were two clouds, one on the left, one on the right, and they almost looked like they could be interlocking puzzle pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the conversation continued, and there's a detail I always forget here, Louise, that something about it had to do with what we were talking about at the time.
Yes, because we were writing the story, so we would frequently speak on the phone, trying to just reconfirm how the stories was supposed to, how it was going to be written, and the details, and we were kind of tying up some loose ends. And it was just like a puzzle piece as the story was coming together simultaneously. What was going on so that's the perfect metaphor of what's going on inside of us was being reflected outside of us simultaneously. We're talking. He has no clue, but boom, as we finally realize what's going to happen, the puzzle pieces of the clouds went together. And so that's just, again, another realization of what's going on inside of us definitely shows up on the outside.
Oh, that's sweet. It's just so sweet.
Yeah, we've had so many synchronicities happen to us. And I just believe having those synchronicities means that we're on the right path for sure. Definitely.
Oh, man. Yeah. It's so neat to spend this time with you guys, because I'll look off for a second, feeling that connection that exists between the two of you, and feeling that it is so strong and so powerful. And it's so wonderful to have that, just to have someone who understands the depth of you, not just you in this life, but yeah. All right. So what would y'all recommend to people, given your experiences during this crazy, wonderful, hard time?
I'd say stay true to our own truth and who we are, right? Like for me, for Lynn and I guess during the whole craziness of the pandemic, I just shut the TV off and said, I'm not going to give in to fear. We're going to create. And so everybody gets to look within and stay grounded in their truth, and don't follow the masses. Just do what works best. I always tell my kids, you got to follow what feels right. What does it feel? Go by what you're feeling, your gut intuition, and stay true to yourself. It's so important.
And how old are your kids?
Oh, wow. My son, my oldest turned 33 today. And then
today.
Yeah, today's his birthday. And then I have a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old. So.
Okay. Are they aware of what's going on? How are they evolving?
They're light years ahead of kids their age. They're very awake, very aware.
I might have to have one of them on my show, because seriously, because so many people that are awake, like they're over, and all the groups. I was a member of a constitutional group and also an awareness group, and everybody is like 50 and older primarily. Like there are some younger people, and I have two kids as well. One's aware and one's just not, and she looks at me as just what can you see I'm doing? Yeah, a little crazy conspiracy theorist. And that's so great on all levels. All right, Lynn, what would you say to that?
So one of the things I'd like to share is that Louise and I both realize that as we discover these parallel lives,
Yeah,
we often don't know what to do with them, especially if we've discovered a person we've shared a parallel life with. And so because of the experience we've had over the past 3 years, we're putting some things together to actually coach people through this process of integrating their parallel lives into their present life. And to
nice.
be able to do it in a way that is very supportive and non-judgmental and will really help them take the best of what they were and that parallel life they discovered and bring it into this life so they can even be better for themselves.
So is anyone else doing that as far as you know?
Not that we're aware of at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's pretty unique. So thank you so much for sharing that here. Yeah, I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything y'all want to close us out with?
I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who's listening, who's on that path, and just listen to that little voice within. The world could be telling you one thing, but deep down inside,
it is. It's trying.
You gotta live your intuition and live your truth. And not always easy to do, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. So
it is.
Yeah, and Eden, I want to thank you so much for having us on your show.
Oh, you're
welcome. And it's been an absolute joy to spend time with you.
Thanks.
Thank you for all the amazing questions you asked. And
yeah.
We want to send life blessings to you and all of your listeners.
Thank you so much. I'm feeling that yumminess. And I will have links to get in touch with these two, links to order their book if you're interested. I don't know, links to everything.
Thank you
All right,
so
y'all.
much. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Have a wonderful, wonderful week. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And just to add in the Just Be practice, I did it in Sedona. So I recorded it there. So hopefully that will be coming next. And I also love that they said eternal love. Let's keep that in the mix with everything as well. All right, y'all. Thank you. And Louise, get home safely in that traffic. And Lynn, if you could just hang on for just a second with me.
Sure.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Coming back with Lynn for just a minute, because I was thanking him so much for sharing the truth of his story. Do you mind telling the folks about some of the groups that you're involved in and what you're discovering?
Yeah. So I'm involved in some groups of people that are survivors of satanic ritual abuse and MK Ultra specifically. And I've been learning a lot more about that. I've been learning about my story, and I'll call it my involvement, but I wasn't involved the same way that some other people were. Mm-hmm. But I have a connection to it. But anyway, and so part of the work I'm doing with this, and the idea of speaking your truth, or really even getting in sync with your truth, is that anyone who's gone through any form of abuse has been lied to so many times about who they are. And most of us are terribly afraid of who we think we are because we don't know who we are. And so it's so important to help people discover the truth of who they are so they can begin to destroy the lies that have been told to them about themselves. And so that's really the nature of the work I'm starting. And I've done this for a while, but getting deeper into it now and understanding that it's that we're actually afraid of our own truth because we think it's something other than it really is.
And thank you. I just wanted to add this little snippet to those who think that MK Ultra is a conspiracy theory and Satanistic practices. It's really big in our world right now. So Lynn, thank you so much for working with that and helping people through it. All right. Thank you. Okay,
Thank
as
you.
the practice is just audio, I'm going to give you guys a quick visual of where it was recorded. Bring yourself here. All right, sitting out here today, Sedona, Arizona, and it's Thanksgiving, so I figured I would just do the meditation for the podcast here because also sitting out near an energy vortex, so going to bring all of that loveliness into this. So the vortex to me kind of represents all of the energy, the wild energy that is going on in the world right now. Therefore, I would invite you to take that beautiful breath that I always start with and imagine right now it is in the mid-50s here, sunny. Perfect and warm, but then not too hot. And sitting with me with this energy and being thankful for everything. Knowing there's a lot of not so great stuff going on right now, deaths, and money issues, and let's just say more. Somehow being thankful for all of that, and then also being thankful for the steadiness that this energy creates. And that even in this chaos, there is joy, there is happiness, there is connection. And you are all of it. Yet as you move more towards the connection and the joy, you become more of that. It's not separating yourself, it's being with all of it, yet choosing the higher vibration, the higher path. Ooh, and there's a big breeze that's coming right now. And the breeze continues. Knowing that as we continue to strive towards that higher vibration, that higher peace, that higher contentment, that is what we create even in this chaos. That we choose authenticity, we choose to be grounded, we choose not to let others throw us off of our peace no more, to the fact that we even proclaim it. And knowing that if this is your choice, everything here supports you today. Sitting out here in nature, looking at these huge red rocks,
knowing that there is peace here. And if there is peace here, there is peace everywhere. Sometimes you just gotta fight it or find it, and sometimes you have to fight for it. And then fall into it. So thankful, in a sense, for the demons, for the gods, because we are all one. And soon this polarity won't need to exist anymore, because we've accepted it and we've seen it and we've moved past it. Blessings and thanks.
So cool of you to be here. I went from being off most social media to being on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Truth Social, and you might be watching this on YouTube, Rumble, or BitChute. Or you might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on over 19 directories at this point. So connect, comment, subscribe, like. Oh, and my intention is to have a new episode out Wednesday of each week. Oh, Lordy, more to come.